The station was called Nexus 7. It was a big place full of many different kinds of life. Beings from all over the galaxy walked its long, curved hallways. The air always smelled strange. It was a mix of recycled air, the oil from machines, and the weird smells of all the different aliens. In this busy place, a woman named Hannah moved like a shadow. She was a killer. It was her job. She was very good at it. Hannah was not tall, but she was strong and fast. Her black hair was tied back in a simple way. Her eyes were dark and calm. They showed no feeling. She wore plain, dark clothes that did not stand out. She was just another person in the crowd. Today she had a job to do. Her mission was to find a man and kill him. The people who hired her said he was a problem. They said he was a low priority but high-risk target. This meant they did not think he was very important, but they thought he could be dangerous. Hannah did not care about the reasons. She only cared about completing the mission. The man's name was Minsu. He was human, like her. He lived in a quiet part of the station. The file said he was a simple data worker. He checked numbers and reports for a living. It sounded boring. Hannah thought it would be an easy job. Get in, finish the job, and get out. She found the door to his apartment. It was a simple door, like all the others in this section. The lock was not very strong. Hannah took out a small tool. It was a thin piece of metal and wire. She worked quietly. In a few seconds, she heard a soft click. The door was unlocked. She pushed the door open just enough to slip inside. The apartment was dark and quiet. The only light came from the station's glow outside the big window. It showed the stars and the other parts of Nexus 7. Hannah stood still for a moment, listening. She heard nothing. No movement. No sound of breathing. Maybe he was not home. That would make it easier. She could wait for him. She moved forward. Her steps made no sound on the floor. The apartment was very clean. Almost too clean. There was not much stuff. A small table, one chair, a simple kitchen. It did not look like a home. It looked like a place where someone slept and then left. There were no pictures on the walls. No personal things. This was often the case with people who had secrets. Hannah held her weapon ready. It was a small plasma blade. It could cut through almost anything. It glowed with a soft blue light. She was ready to use it. Then she heard a sound. It was a soft sound. A gentle rhythmic noise. Click-clack, click-clack. It was not the sound of a machine. It was not the sound of a weapon. It was a familiar sound, but she could not place it. It was a sound from a long time ago, from a life she had almost forgotten. She moved towards the sound. It came from the main living area around a corner. She held her breath and peered slowly into the room, and then she saw him. A man was sitting in a chair by the big window. The soft light from a lamp fell on him. He was young, with kind eyes and dark hair. He was looking down at his hands, completely focused. In his hands, he held two long, polished wood sticks, and he was using them to knit. A large, half-finished blanket was spread over his legs. It was made from yarn in soft colors, browns, greens, and a deep blue like the sky at night. His fingers moved the wooden sticks with a smooth, practiced skill. The click-clack was the sound of the sticks touching each other. Hannah just stood there. She was frozen. This was not what she expected. She was ready for a fight. She was ready for a man with a weapon. She was ready for fear, for anger, for anything but this. This was peace. This was calm. This was the exact opposite of everything she was. Her mind raced. Was this a trick? Was the blanket hiding a weapon? Was he pretending? But no, his movements were too natural. His face was completely relaxed. He was lost in his work. She looked at the blanket. It was beautiful. The pattern was complex. It looked soft and warm. Next to his chair was a basket filled with balls of yarn, the same soft colors. On the small table next to him was a cup. A little steam rose from it. It was probably tea. Her mission was clear. Her orders were simple. Walk up behind him. One quick, quiet movement with the blade. It would be over. He would never know what happened, but her feet would not move. She watched his hands. They were gentle hands. They created things. Her hands were made for destruction. They were made to take life, not to make something that gave warmth. The click-clack of the wood sticks was the only sound in the room. It was a peaceful sound. It was a human sound. On this cold metal station, surrounded by aliens and machines, this one man was making something by hand. Something from an old simple craft. Hana felt a strange feeling in her chest. It was a feeling she had not felt in a very long time. It was confusion mixed with something else. Something like sadness. She was a killer sent to slay him, and she had found him knitting a blanket. Her plans were falling apart before the mission had even really begun. She stood in the shadows, weapon in hand, and watched. She could not look away. The blue glow of her blade seemed wrong in this quiet, warm room. It was an ugly light. She did not know what to do. For the first time in her career, Hana was not sure she could complete her mission. The silence in the room felt heavy. It was a thick, strange silence, broken only by the soft, steady click-clack of the wooden knitting needles. Hana stood perfectly still, a statue in the shadows of the doorway. Her training screamed at her. It was a loud, clear voice in her mind. Move. Now. Strike. The man, Minsu, was completely unaware. His back was mostly to her. The line of his neck was exposed. It would be so easy. One single swift motion, a quick, clean end to the mission. She had done this dozens of times. It was a simple mechanical act. See the target, neutralize the target, leave. But her body refused to listen. Her eyes were fixed on his hands. They moved with a gentle, certain rhythm. Wrap the yarn, slide the needle, pull the loop through, again and again. There was a peace in that movement that Hana could not understand. She watched the blanket grow just a little with each new stitch. It was a deep, forest green color where he was currently working. Her own heart was beating too fast. This was wrong. All of it was wrong. The file said he was a potential threat, a high-risk individual, but the man in the chair was creating something soft and warm. He was drinking tea. The air even smelled faintly of the tea, a floral scent, not the sharp smell of fear or weapons. This was not the lair of a dangerous fugitive. This was a home, a quiet, simple home. The voice in her head, the killer's voice, tried to find a reason. It's a trick. He's expecting someone. The blanket is a code. The knitting is a signal. But the ideas felt weak and silly. There was no tension in Minsu's shoulders, no nervous glances at the door. He was just a man, knitting. Hana's grip on the plasma blade was so tight her knuckles hurt. The soft blue glow of the weapon seemed out of place here. It was a cold, hard light in this warm, soft room. It felt like an intrusion. Then Minsu's hand stilled. He had finished a row. He gently laid the blanket and the needles on his lap. He reached for his cup of tea. He took a slow sip and then he spoke. His voice was calm and quiet. It was not loud, but in the silent room it was as sharp as a gunshot. I was wondering when you'd arrive, he said. Hana's breath caught in her throat. Every muscle in her body went rigid. How did he know? She had been silent. The door had made no sound. She was deep in the shadows. Her mind raced through the possibilities. A hidden camera she missed? A pressure sensor on the floor? Was he armed after all? Her training took over again. She stepped out of the shadows, her weapon held ready. The blue light from the blade lit up the space between them. She expected to see fear on his face. She expected him to jump up, to raise his hands, to beg for his life. He did none of those things. Minsu slowly turned his head to look at her. He did not seem surprised or scared. His eyes, a warm brown, met hers. There was no anger in them, no hate. Just a quiet look, like he was seeing an old friend. He looked at the glowing plasma blade in her hand. He looked back at her face. The door was unlocked for you, he added, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. Hana could not speak. This had never happened before. Targets were always afraid. They were always confused. They never knew. And they certainly never left the door unlocked. Who are you? Hana finally said. Her own voice sounded strange to her. It was harsh and tight. My name is Minsu, he said, as if she had asked a simple question at a social gathering. I know what your name is, Hana snapped. What are you? Minsu looked down at the blanket on his lap. He gently touched the soft wool. I am a man who is knitting a blanket. He looked back at her. Would you like to sit? I am just about to start the next row. It is a complicated part of the pattern. It requires focus. Hana stared at him. Was he crazy? Was this a joke? She was here to kill him, and he was offering her a seat and talking about his knitting pattern. Her eyes scanned the room again quickly. No other doors. No signs of anyone else. The window was reinforced transparisteel. He could not escape. She was in control. But for the first time, she did not feel in control. He was in control with his calm voice and his knitting. "Why did you leave the door unlocked?" she demanded, not moving from her spot. "Because I knew you were coming," he said simply. He picked up his knitting needles again. The click-clack sound started once more. The sound was beginning to annoy Hana. It was so normal, so peaceful. It did not belong in this situation. "How?" Hana's voice was a low whisper. "How could you know?" Minsu was quiet for a moment, his eyes on his work. "I felt you," he said finally. "Earlier today, when your ship docked at the station." Hana felt a cold trickle of fear. This was not normal. This was not technology. This was something else. "Felt me?" she repeated. "Yes," he said. He did not look up. "It is hard to explain. It is a feeling I get, like a pattern in the air. Most people have messy patterns. Happy, sad, tired, excited, all mixed together." He finished a stitch and looked at her. "Your pattern is very different. It is very clear, very sharp, and very cold, like a single straight line made of ice. It is the pattern of a person with one purpose." Hana stood frozen. He was describing her. He was describing the focus she needed for her work. The emotional emptiness, the coldness inside her. "So you knew an assassin was coming for you," Hana said. "And you did nothing? You did not run? You did not set a trap?" Minsu shook his head slowly. "No. There is no point in running from a pattern like yours. You would always find me, and I do not believe in traps." He gestured around the simple room. "This is all I have. There is nothing here to trap you with." "Then why stay?" Hana asked, truly confused now. "Why sit here and wait for me?" "To understand," he said. His eyes were soft, and to be understood. He looked at the blanket he was making. "This blanket? It is for you." The words hung in the air. They made no sense to Hana. It was like he was speaking a different language. "For me," she said, stunned. "Yes," Minsu said. "When I felt your pattern, I felt the cold. I felt the empty spaces, the frayed edges. I thought you could use some warmth." Hana felt a strange tightness in her chest. No one had ever seen her as anything but a weapon. Her employers gave her orders. Her targets saw her as death. She was a thing to be used or a thing to be feared. She was not a person who could be cold. She was not a person who needed warmth. This man, her target, had felt her coldness from across the space station, and his response was not to hide. It was not to fight. His response was to sit down and knit her a blanket. The plasma blade in her hand felt heavy and useless. What was she supposed to do with it? Cut through this soft, peaceful scene? Cut through this man who had, for some insane reason, spent his last hours making a gift for his own killer? The click-clack of the needles continued. It was a sound of creation, of patience, of a slow, gentle making. It was the absolute opposite of the quick, violent hum of her plasma blade. Hana slowly lowered her weapon. Her arm felt tired. She did not deactivate it. The blue light still glowed, but it was pointed at the floor now. She just looked at him. She looked at the man who knew she was there to kill him. The man who had knitted her a blanket because he thought she was cold. And for the first time in a very long time, Hana did not know what to do next. The mission was clear, but the man in the chair had made everything complicated. He had seen the person behind the killer, and she did not know how to be that person anymore. She just stood there, listening to the sound of the knitting, feeling more lost than she had ever felt in her life. The soft click-clack of the knitting needles filled the room. It was the only sound now. Hana had stopped talking. She just stood there, her weapon pointed at the floor. Her mind was a storm of confusion. This man, Minsu, had disarmed her without a single fight. He had used only words and the sight of his gentle work. Minsu looked at her. He saw the conflict on her face. He saw the way she held the weapon, not with purpose anymore, but with confusion. "You can deactivate that," he said softly, nodding toward the plasma blade. "It will not be needed here. Not for its intended purpose." Hana's fingers tightened on the hilt. Her training screamed that this was a trick, that the moment her guard was down, he would attack. But a deeper, quieter part of her knew he was telling the truth. A man who knits blankets for his assassins does not then try to kill them. Slowly, her thumb moved. She pressed the small button on the hilt. The low hum of the blade stopped. The blue light vanished, leaving the room feeling darker and somehow more peaceful. The only light now came from the small lamp and the stars outside the window. "Why am I here?" Hana asked. Her voice was rough. The truth.
Why did they send me to kill you?
Minsu placed his knitting carefully on his lap again. He looked tired but not afraid. Because I know their secrets, he said. Not because I went looking for them, but because I can feel them. Feel them? Hana repeated. She was still trying to understand this idea of feeling patterns. I told you I feel patterns. The intent behind words, the truth behind lies. He looked at his hands. The company that hired you, Omnicorp, they send people to talk to colonies. They offer contracts. They promise good things, food, medicine, protection. Hana gave a short nod. She knew Omnicorp. They were one of her best clients. They always paid on time. But their words, Minsu continued, that their patterns, they are wrong. When their agents smile, their patterns are sharp and greedy. When they promise help, their patterns are cold and empty. They lie. They plan to take everything from these people and leave them with nothing. He looked up at her. I help the colonies. I just sit in the room and listen. I do not say much, but I can feel the lies from the Omnicorp agents. I can tell the colony leaders who is truthful and who is not. I help them see the trap before they step into it. Hana processed this. A xeno-empath. The file had said nothing about this. It had just called him a rogue information broker. A threat to corporate stability. They had lied to her. They had made her think he was a thief, a spy. Not a man who helped simple people by listening. So you are a threat to their profits, Hana said flatly. Yes, Minsu said. A very small one. But even a small threat must be removed. So they sent you. The best tool for the job. Hana flinched at the word tool. It was what she was. But hearing him say it felt different. It felt true and the truth hurt. They told me you were dangerous, Hana said almost to herself. I am dangerous to them, Minsu replied, but not in the way you thought. I have no weapons. I cannot fight. My only ability is to feel what is real, and that is the most dangerous thing of all to people who live by lies. He picked up the blanket. It was almost finished. He held it out towards her. Here, Hana did not move. She just stared at the soft wool. The colors were beautiful together. It looked incredibly warm. Take it, he said gently. Please. Slowly, hesitantly, Hana took a step forward. Then another. She was close to him now. She could see the fine details of the knitting, the careful even stitches. She could smell the wool, a simple, clean smell. She reached out a hand. Her fingers, usually so sure and steady, trembled slightly. She touched the blanket. It was softer than anything she had ever felt. It was like touching a cloud. The warmth from his lap was still in the fibers. She pulled her hand back quickly as if burned. Why? She whispered, her voice breaking. Why would you make this for me? Because I told you, he said, his eyes kind. Your pattern is so cold, so alone. Everyone has a need for warmth, Hana. Even you. Hearing him say her name was another shock. She had not told him. He just knew. He knew her name and he knew the cold inside her. This man saw everything. She looked from the blanket to his face. There was no trick there. No hate, no fear. There was only a deep, quiet sadness and a strange kind of pity. Pity for her. Her whole life, her whole career crumbled in that moment. She had believed she was strong. She had believed she was serving a purpose, a necessary, if ugly, part of the galaxy's order. But now she saw the truth. She was a weapon used by liars to kill a good man. A man who knitted blankets. She was not strong. She was a fool. A loud, sharp beep broke the silence. It came from a small data pad on the table next to Minsu's tea. Minsu's calm face finally changed. A look of deep worry crossed his features. He reached over and picked up the pad. He looked at the screen. His shoulders slumped. What is it? Hana asked. Her body was tense again, ready for a fight. But who was the enemy now? It is a station alert, Minsu said, his voice heavy. An unauthorized breach. A ship has forced its way into the docking bay on this level. He looked up at her, his eyes full of a new understanding. They did not trust you to finish the job. Or they do not trust you to stay quiet about it. They sent a cleanup crew. Hana's blood ran cold. A cleanup crew. She knew what that meant. Omnicorp was not taking any chances. They were sending enforcers to kill Minsu and to kill her. They would leave no witnesses. The red emergency lights of the station began to flash, staining the peaceful room a bloody color. A loud automated voice echoed through the station speakers. Security breach. Level Gamma. All residents, secure your doors and remain in your homes. The sound of heavy running footsteps came from the hallway outside. They were not the soft steps of station security. They were the loud pounding steps of armored soldiers. The mission was over. Everything had changed. Hana looked at Minsu. He was just sitting there, holding his half-finished blanket, looking at the door. He was a man of peace, and violence was coming for him. She looked down at her hand. The plasma blade was still there, deactivated. She looked at the blanket, so soft and warm. Then she made a choice. Her fingers moved. She pressed the button on the hilt of her weapon. The blade sprang to life once more, humming with a bright, fierce blue light. But this time she did not point it at Minsu. She turned and faced the door. Her voice was clear and sharp, all confusion gone. Get back. Away from the door. Find a place to hide. Minsu looked at her, surprised. What are you doing? The plan has shifted, Hana said, her eyes fixed on the door. She was a killer again, but now she was a killer with a purpose. She was not a tool for Omnicorp anymore. She was a shield. I am not here for you. Not anymore. They lied to me. And now they have come to kill us both. The pounding footsteps stopped right outside the door. A loud electronic voice boomed from the hallway. Omnicorp security, open up. Hana stood firm, her weapon ready. The soft, unfinished blanket lay on the chair behind her. The hard blue light of her blade reflected in the window. The quiet room was gone. Now it was a battlefield, and Hana was ready to fight for the first time in her life for something other than a paycheck. She was ready to fight for the man who had seen the cold inside her and had tried to give her warmth. The world narrowed to the door. The red emergency lights flashed, painting the room in pulses of danger. The calm was gone, shattered by the heavy pounding on the metal door. Omnicorp security. Open up! The electronic voice was flat and without feeling. It was the voice of pure force. Hana knew that voice. She had worked with these people before. They were not here to talk. Her mind was clear now. The confusion was burned away by the immediate threat. She had a mission. A new mission. Protect Minsu, get into the back room. The bedroom, now! She barked at him, her voice full of a command he had not heard before. Minsu moved quickly. He was not a fighter, but he understood urgency. He grabbed his knitting and the basket of yarn and hurried towards the small bedroom at the back of the apartment. Hana did not watch him go. Her eyes were fixed on the door. She assessed the situation with a cold professional speed. One door, no other exits. The enforcers would be armed with heavy blaster rifles and light body armor. They would come in fast and shoot anything that moved. The door was the only way in. It was also a trap. She moved to the side of the doorway, pressing her back against the wall. This was the fatal funnel. Anyone coming through the door would be focused on the room ahead. They would not see her right away. A loud crash shook the door. They were using a hydraulic ram. The metal around the lock groaned and bent. One more hit and it would burst open. Hana took a deep breath. This was what she knew. This was violence. This was the language she spoke best. But for the first time it felt right. It felt like a choice. With a final screeching crunch, the door blew inward, slamming against the wall. The room was instantly filled with noise and movement. The first enforcer came through. He was big, clad in sleek gray armor, his helmet hiding his face. He held a large blaster rifle, sweeping it across the room, looking for targets. He saw the empty chair, the cup of tea, the peaceful scene. His rifle paused for a fraction of a second. That was all Hana needed. She moved like lightning. Her left hand shot out, grabbing the barrel of his rifle and shoving it upward. At the same time, her right hand drove the plasma blade forward. The blue energy cut through his armor at the shoulder joint like it was paper. There was a sizzling sound and a smell of burned metal and flesh. The man grunted and collapsed, his rifle clattering to the floor, but there was no time to rest. The second enforcer was already coming through the door. He was smarter. He saw his partner fall and immediately fired his weapon. A bright red bolt of energy screamed past Hana's head. It hit the wall behind her, blasting a black smoking hole in the metal. The heat from the blast washed over her. Hana dropped to one knee. The enforcer fired again, the bolt going over her. She thrust her plasma blade upward, under the bottom edge of his body armor. The blade sank deep. The man cried out. A choked electronic sound through his helmet speaker. He fell backward, blocking the doorway for a moment. From the hallway, she heard shouts. "Two is down. The asset is armed and hostile. Asset, that was what they called her. She was just a thing to them. A thing that had broken and now needed to be thrown away. A third enforcer tried to push past the body in the doorway. He leaned in, firing his rifle wildly into the room. Blaster bolts tore through the apartment. They hit the table, shattering the cup of tea. Brown liquid and pieces of ceramic flew everywhere. They hit the chair, burning a hole in the fabric. They hit the basket of yarn, setting the soft, colorful balls on fire. The smell of burning wool mixed with the smell of blaster fire. Hana felt a hot pain in her arm. A grazing shot. It burned, but it was not bad. She ignored it. She threw herself to the side behind the now burning chair, using it as cover. She peeked out. The enforcer in the doorway was trying to get a clear shot at her. He was focused entirely on her position. He did not see Minsu. Minsu was standing at the entrance to the bedroom. His face was pale, but his eyes were determined. He was not holding a weapon. He was holding the large, heavy basket made of woven wood that had held his yarn. With a strength Hana did not know he had, he hurled the basket across the room. It was not a weapon meant to kill. It was a distraction. The basket spun through the air and hit the enforcer in the doorway squarely on the side of his helmet. It did not hurt him through the armor, but it surprised him. He flinched, turning his head for just a second. A second was all Hana needed. She sprang from behind the chair. The enforcer saw her too late. He started to swing his rifle towards her. Hana was faster. She lunged forward, her plasma blade a blur of blue light. She drove it straight into the chest plate of his armor. The armor was stronger there. It did not fully penetrate, but the intense energy discharge shorted out the armor's systems. The man spasmed and fell to the floor, stunned. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of the burning yarn and the hiss of the broken door mechanism. The acrid smoke stung Hana's eyes. She stood panting in the middle of the wreckage. Her peaceful, warm room was gone. It was a war zone. The walls were scarred with blaster marks. The air was thick with smoke. The bodies of 3 enforcers lay in and around the doorway. She looked at Minsu. He was staring at the destruction, his hands empty. The beautiful blanket he had been making was now on the floor, near the burning basket. A corner of it was starting to smolder. Hana quickly stepped over and stamped out the small ember on the blanket. She picked it up. It was still mostly unharmed. She held it in her hand for a moment, feeling its softness amidst all the hardness and death. Then she heard a new sound. More footsteps, heavier this time, and a different, deeper voice from the hallway. Team 2, move up. She has taken out the first team. Use grenades. Hana's blood went cold. Grenades. In this small, enclosed space, there was no cover from a grenade. It would kill them both. She looked at Minsu. His eyes were wide. He had heard it too. They were trapped. They had won the first fight, but they could not win this one. The new plan had lasted for only a few minutes. It seemed it was about to end. The word grenades echoed in the smoky air. It was a death sentence. Hana's mind raced, searching for an answer that was not there. There was no escape. The window was reinforced. The only door was a choke point held by the enemy. They were trapped. Her eyes met Minsu's across the ruined room. In his face, she saw no blame, only a sad acceptance. He had known this might happen. He had chosen to stay anyway, but Hana had not accepted it. Not anymore. She had just found a reason to live. She would not let it be taken away so easily. Her gaze swept the room again, desperately. It fell on the body of the first enforcer she had killed. He was lying half in the doorway, his bulky armor and the broken door creating a partial shield, and in his hand his blaster rifle lay on the floor. An idea, wild and dangerous, sparked in her mind. Minsu, get down, flat on the floor in the bedroom, she yelled. He did not hesitate. He dropped to the floor and crawled out of sight. Hana took a deep breath, ignoring the burning pain in her arm. She lunged forward, not towards the door, but towards the body of the enforcer. Blaster fire erupted from the hallway. Red bolts sizzled past her, hitting the walls and floor around her. She felt a searing heat on her leg as another shot grazed her. She dove, sliding the last few feet on the floor. She grabbed the dead enforcer's blaster rifle. It was heavy and unfamiliar in her hands. She was trained for close-quarters combat, not for rifle fire. But she knew the basics. She rolled onto her back, pointing the rifle towards the hallway. She could see the shadows of the new team moving carefully outside. "Throw the flashbang now," a voice shouted. Hana saw a small cylindrical object arc through the doorway. It was not a fragmentation grenade. It was a stun grenade. They wanted to disable them, not blow them to pieces. They probably wanted to confirm the kill themselves. That was their mistake. The grenade hit the floor and started to spin. Hana did the only thing she could think of. She kicked out with all her strength. Her boot connected with the dead enforcer's armored shoulder, shoving his heavy body. It slid a few inches, just enough to bump into the stun grenade. The grenade was knocked sideways, rolling back through the doorway into the hall. There was a shouted curse from the hallway. Then a deafening bang and a blinding white light filled the corridor. The enforcers in the hall were caught in their own weapon. Hana, inside the room, was partially shielded by the wall and the body. Her ears rang and her vision swam with white spots, but she was not disabled. She pushed herself up. This was their only chance. Min-Soo! Now, we have to go, she screamed, her voice sounding muffled in her own head. Min-Soo appeared at the bedroom door, looking dazed but alert. Hana scrambled to her feet, clutching the blaster rifle. She stepped over the body in the doorway and peered into the hall. 2 enforcers were on the ground, clutching their helmets, stunned and disoriented. A third was further back, shaking his head, trying to clear his vision. Hana did not stop to fight them. That was not the goal. The goal was to escape. Come on, she said, grabbing Min-Soo's arm and pulling him into the hallway. They ran. They ran past the stunned soldiers. They ran away from the smoke and the ruin of the apartment. The station's alarm still blared and the red lights still flashed. Other residents had locked their doors. The hall was empty. Where are we going? Min-Soo asked, his breath coming in short gasps. The docking bay, Hana said. Their ship is there. We take it. It was a crazy plan, but it was the only one they had. They ran through the curved corridors. Hana led the way, her senses heightened, the rifle held ready. She felt more alive than she had ever felt. She was not running for a paycheck. She was running for her life. For their lives. They turned a corner and almost ran into 2 station security guards. The guards looked young and scared. They raised their own weapons. Halt! Stop right there! One of them shouted, his voice trembling. Hana stopped. She could easily take them out. But she did not want to. They were just kids doing their job. Listen to me, Hana said, her voice loud and clear. Omnicorp enforcers are on this level. They have broken station law. They attacked a resident. They are the threat, not us. Let us pass. The guards hesitated, looking at Hana's weapon and her bleeding arm, then at Min-Soo's frightened face. A burst of blaster fire came from behind them. The enforcers had recovered and were coming. The decision was made for the guards. Go, the younger one said, pointing down the hall. Bay 42 is that way. We will try to slow them down. Hana gave them a quick nod. It was more than she expected. Thank you. She and Min-Soo ran again. They found the entrance to Bay 42. The door was sealed, but Hana fired the blaster rifle at the control panel. It sparked and smoked, and the door slid roughly open. Inside sat a small, sleek, armored shuttle. It was an Omnicorp assault craft. The ramp was down. They ran up the ramp and into the ship. The interior was cold and gray, all business. Hana went straight to the pilot's seat. She had flown many kinds of ships before. She started the launch sequence. Strap in, she told Min-Soo. Through the front window, she saw the 2 station security guards standing at the bay entrance, firing their weapons down the hallway, holding back the enforcers. They were buying time for them. The ship's engines whined to life. Hana grabbed the controls. With a lurch, the ship lifted off the deck. She guided it towards the large bay doors. Bay Control, this is Omnicorp Shuttle Theta 7 requesting emergency departure, she said into the comm, trying to sound official. Theta 7, your authorization is not clearing. Stand down, a controller's voice replied. There is a firefight on level Gamma. We are compromised. I am departing now, Hana shouted, and she cut the comm. She pushed the thrusters forward. The shuttle shot towards the closed bay doors. At the last second, the doors, sensing an imminent collision, slid open. The shuttle burst out of the station and into the open blackness of space. Stars, sharp and clear, filled the view. The huge rotating ring of Nexus 7 hung behind them. They were free. Hana set the ship on a random course away from the station, away from Omnicorp. For now. The silence inside the shuttle was sudden and deep. The only sound was the hum of the engines and their own heavy breathing. Hana slowly unstrapped herself. Her body ached. Her arm and leg burned where the blaster bolts had grazed her. She felt tired down to her bones. She turned to look at Min-Soo. He was sitting in the co-pilot's chair, staring out at the stars. He looked pale and shaken. Then he looked at her. He looked at the blood on her arm and leg. Without a word, he got up and walked to the back of the shuttle. He came back with a small med kit. "Let me see," he said softly. Hannah was too tired to argue. She sat still as he cleaned and bandaged the wounds on her arm and leg. His touch was gentle, just like his hands when they held the knitting needles. When he was finished, he did not move away. He looked at her face, really looked at her. "Thank you," he said. "You saved my life," Hannah shook her head. "You saved mine first," she whispered. She thought of the blanket. In all the chaos, she had left it behind. It was probably still on the floor of the ruined apartment, surrounded by fire and death. The thought made her unbelievably sad. Min-Soo saw the look on her face. He smiled a little. Then he reached into the large pocket of his simple jacket. He pulled out a bundle of soft, folded fabric. It was the blanket. It was a little dirty, and one corner was slightly burned where the ember had touched it. But it was whole. He had saved it. He held it out to her. "I finished it," he said. "Just before they came. I was weaving in the last thread." Hannah looked at the blanket. Then she looked at his kind, tired face. Her eyes filled with tears. She had not cried since she was a little girl. She took the blanket. It was as soft and warm as she remembered. She wrapped it around her shoulders. The weight of it was comforting. It felt like a shield made of kindness. It felt like a home. She was a killer sent to slay him. But he had seen the person she could be, and in the end she had chosen to be that person. She pulled the blanket tight and looked out at the endless stars. They were alone, but they were together. They had no plan, but they had a future. And for the first time, that future felt warm.